Story 1. The same dog crossed the road 5 times, but we never passed it. This happened to me in 2019. I was driving an overnight load from Denver to Boise, a route I knew by heart. Nothing special about the job, just another long-haul solo stretch to make up for a missed delivery the week before. It was mid-January. Clear sky. Midnight air hanging cold enough to freeze the edges of your windshield. I'd driven this highway more times than I could count. I knew the gas stations, the tight curves, even the weird billboard with the grinning mechanic pointing at a tire. It's usually a peaceful ride, but this night felt sharp, like the air was watching. The first time I saw the dog, it ran across the road, maybe 30 yards ahead. Medium size, black fur, moved fast but not in a panic, just straight across. I slowed out of reflex, scanned the shoulder. Nothing. No collar, no visible tags. I made a mental note to be careful for strays and kept moving. About 20 minutes later, same road. I saw the dog again. Same size, same coat, same gait. It darted from left to right, almost identical. It was eerie how precise it was. The pattern, the motion. I checked the GPS to make sure I hadn't taken a wrong exit, still on track, still headed north. I told myself it had to be another dog. Same breed maybe, same part of town. But I'd only passed open highway, pine woods, and darkness. No neighborhoods, no turnoffs. Then it happened a third time. Same dog, same spot, same timing. This time it stopped in the middle of the road for a second. Turned its head just enough for me to glimpse a white patch under its left eye. I tapped the brakes. It stared, not like an animal, like it was waiting. I leaned forward. The headlights flickered just slightly as I crept closer, and the dog ran off again. Same direction, to the right, into trees I hadn't noticed before. A strange pressure built behind my eyes, like my brain was resisting something, like déjà vu had teeth now. I turned on the radio just to break the silence. All static, every station. I turned it off. The sound didn't stop. That's when I started to wonder if I was going in circles, but the GPS insisted I was moving forward. Mileage increased, ETA lowered. The sky looked subtly different each time I passed the point where the dog appeared. First it was starless, then cloud-streaked, then a pale strip of moonlight, like someone was changing slides in a projector. Each time I passed the dog, I felt more awake. Not the caffeinated kind, the fight or flight kind, like my body knew something I didn't. I started counting. First appearance, 1:18 a.m., second, 1:34, third, 1:51, each time exactly 16 minutes apart. I drove in silence, heart racing, gripping the wheel with the sense that I'd missed a turn somewhere I never saw. I checked the GPS again, still straight, still accurate. Then the fourth time happened. The dog crossed slower. This time it looked different. Its gait was heavier, labored, limps on the left hind leg, same white patch under the eye. The seconds between spotting it and passing it felt elongated, like the air thickened. I rolled the window down just enough to hear something, anything, and I did. Not barking, not growling, a low whine, almost human. I slammed the window shut and floored it, passed it, didn't look in the rear view. The fifth time, I told myself, if it happened, I'd stop. I needed to know if I was looping, if something was happening to the road. Or to me. 1:08 a.m. again. Dog. Middle of the road, but it didn't move this time. I stopped. The truck idled in the middle of the lane. I flicked on the hazards and stepped out. No lights anywhere around. No traffic, no sounds except the faint mechanical hum of the engine. My boots crunched on the frostbit asphalt. I scanned the road where the dog had been. Nothing, no body, no movement, just that strange, tight pressure around my head, like the air itself was pressing in. I walked slowly forward, eyes darting left and right. That stretch of highway was utterly dead, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Then I saw it, a smear of black fur like it had been torn from something fast-moving. Just a few clumps, short, coarse, still warm when I crouched and brushed it with my glove. No blood. No sign of impact. I stood up, and that's when I saw the tire marks. Not mine, narrower, older, and wrong. They didn't follow the road. They spiraled. About 10 feet ahead, faint lines curved off from the shoulder. I followed them with my flashlight. They looped inward, not in circles, in a precise inward spiral like a pattern carved deliberately, tight, methodical, and perfectly symmetrical. I followed the pattern until the middle. There, at the spiral's center, was a small indentation in the dirt, about the size of a bowl, as if something had sat there or waited. I reached out instinctively but pulled back. The center was warm, radiating heat against the cold air. Suddenly, the truck headlights flickered behind me, once, twice, then off. I turned around, engine still on, but the lights were dead. I jogged back, opened the door. Every warning light on the dash blinked in sequence, then reset. GPS froze. The screen flashed static, then turned black. My phone in the cup holder vibrated once, then shut off completely. That's when I noticed the sound again, a low scratching like nails on the underside of metal. I ducked to look under the chassis. Nothing, but the sound came again, louder, from beneath the cab. I stepped back. Silence. Then, from the woods beside the road, I heard something break, like a branch. Then another, slow, deliberate, but there was no wind. I climbed back into the truck, slammed the door shut and locked it, sat there in the dark, barely breathing, no dog, no lights, no explanation, just the sense that something had pulled me out of linear time, twisted me around, and dropped me back. And it wasn't finished. I made it to a rest stop just before dawn. Truck still acting up, engine temperature slightly elevated, brakes touchy, GPS not recovering. There were only 2 other rigs in the lot. I pulled into a spot near the end, climbed down, and just stood there for a while, hands on knees, breathing, trying to convince myself it was fatigue, hallucination. The rest stop bathroom was lit in that sickly yellow glow. I washed my face and stared at myself in the mirror longer than I meant to. Something about my eyes looked different, more bloodshot than they should have been. Back outside, a guy was standing near one of the vending machines. Late 50s, maybe. Weathered face, hooded eyes. He looked over at me. "You see the dog too?" he asked. The question hit me like a punch. I didn't answer. He nodded like he understood, pulled a pack of smokes from his vest, lit one. "You didn't stop, did you?" he asked, exhaling. I hesitated. He shook his head slowly. "Most folks don't. Not the first time." I asked him what it meant, what he'd seen. He didn't reply, just took a long drag. Then, just as I turned to leave, he called out softly, "Next time it crosses, don't follow it." There was no next sentence, no clarification. I drove the rest of the way with the radio off. GPS reactivated halfway through Idaho. Time caught up again. Nothing else strange. But I kept checking every crossing, every movement on the side of the road. It's been 6 years. I never saw that dog again. But every now and then, around 1:08 a.m., I dream in loops. The road bends, the sky shifts, and I see it, waiting. Story 2. I thought I was alone in the cab, until the breathing didn't match mine. This happened to me in the spring of 2021. I was hauling a mixed load from northern Oregon to Flagstaff. Long route, mostly mountain passes and forest stretches. It was early April, still cold at elevation, and snow had fallen the night before I crossed into Idaho. I've always preferred night driving. There's something peaceful about the silence. No cars, no voices on the radio, just the steady hum of the engine and your own breathing. And for a while, that's all it was. I was maybe 6 hours into the drive when I noticed the rhythm. Not sound, exactly. Pattern. I'd inhaled. Then the exhale. But it didn't match. It was maybe half a beat behind mine. Not slow, not fast, just not mine. At first I figured I was hearing something echo. Maybe the vent system or the wind slipping past the seams in the doorframe. Long hours can mess with your sense of timing. But then it happened again. I took a breath in, counted in my head. 1, 2. Then it exhaled, a soft, dry breath, not harsh like mine, quieter, but distinct. I turned off the heater, listened, silence. I clicked the air recirculation off, still nothing. The cab was dark, except for the glow of the dash. Speed steady, oil pressure fine. Nothing strange, no error lights. So I let it go, kept driving, until I noticed something worse. The breath, it started to sync with mine. Perfectly. Inhale, exhale, together. And then, slowly, it began to lead. It wasn't just matching me, I was being pulled into its rhythm. My chest rose a fraction late. My exhale came as if on command. I adjusted in my seat, opened the window a crack. Cold air sliced in. Still, the sound was there. It wasn't echo anymore. It was pacing me. Not just breath, either. I tapped the steering wheel with my left thumb, absent-minded, 1, 2, 1, 2, and I swear to God, a fraction of a second after each tap, I heard a click. Same pattern, from somewhere behind me. It wasn't loud, it was subtle, like a knuckle-brushing plastic. I turned around. Nothing in the sleeper berth, nothing shifted. I told myself I was overtired, that the road plays tricks when you haven't spoken to another human in 12 hours. But my body was reacting, pulse up, skin cold, eyes darting between the mirrors and the windshield. I kept catching myself holding my breath, not because I wanted to, but because I was trying to hear who else was breathing. The worst part was that I could feel it now. Not presence like heat, but movement, micro-movement. Behind the seat or maybe under the mattress, a shift, a tiny tremor, like someone adjusting ever so slightly, still pacing me, still matching. I kept one hand on the wheel, reached behind me with the other. Palmed the flashlight from the gear tray, I clicked it on, turned and scanned the back. Nothing. Then, just as I was about to turn back, I heard a sound, a soft creak, like fabric stretched under pressure, from the far left corner of the sleeper. I aimed the light, nothing but my duffel bag and the extra blanket folded on the edge. I stared, didn't blink. The air felt thick, not hot, dense, and still, beneath it all, the breathing, just slightly off time from mine now, almost deliberate, like it was waiting for me to catch up. The next night, I was on the same stretch of highway. I'd stopped for fuel and caffeine outside Twin Falls and tried convincing myself the night before had been stress, a brain loop, road delirium. But that didn't explain what happened next. I was passing through a quiet stretch, high desert, barely lit, when I muttered something out loud, just a casual phrase, almost there. And the second I said it, I heard it again. Almost there. Not my voice exactly. Slightly lower, slower, like it had been rehearsed. I froze. The sound had come from the sleeper, a soft, deliberate echo, like a playback that lagged just enough to feel wrong. I spun in my seat, shined my flashlight. Nothing. I sat back, swallowed, waited. Then I whispered, "Who's there?" And I heard, "Who's there?" Same delay, same flat tone. I cut the engine. Let the rig glide until I could pull off on a gravel patch. I killed all lights, sat in total darkness. This time I spoke directly. "Are you in here?" No response. I waited. Then came, "Are you in here?" But it wasn't quite a repeat. It was faster, smoother, like whatever it was speaking had improved. I sat in the dark cab, heart pounding, not moving. Then I asked, "What do you want?" This time the voice beat me to it. "What do you want?" it said, a half second before I did. Like it knew the question was coming, like it had been practicing. That's when I realized it wasn't echoing. It was mimicking, learning, training. I turned the cab lights on full, opened the door, stepped outside into the night cold. The wind was dead, not a sound in the trees. I left the truck running and circled it slowly. Nothing underneath, no sign of forced entry. I climbed back in and sat behind the wheel, gripping it like I needed to anchor myself. Then, from the bunk behind me, a whisper. "Your turn." I made it to Flagstaff by noon the next day. No incidents. Daylight kept whatever it was at bay, if it was still there. I tried explaining it to a guy I know, Lenny, another long hauler who'd worked in dispatch for a decade. He didn't laugh, didn't call me crazy, he just nodded. "You ever heard of feedback entities?" he asked. I hadn't. He said some truckers talk about it on forums. Rare stuff. Happens when a driver's been in solitude too long, too quiet, too still, like the brain starts producing something, an echo of itself. But not just echo, he said, it starts to think. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't want it. But I did buy a cheap voice recorder from a drugstore just outside of town. Put in fresh batteries. Hit record. That night I drove into Arizona, Route 89, Desert Hills, and dead radio. I kept the recorder running, left it on the passenger seat, and I spoke. Testing. No reply. "I'm alone," I said. Silence. Nothing is here. But I heard it then, just past the edge of my hearing. Not through the recorder, through the cab, breathing. This time 2 breaths, 1 mine, 1 not. I kept talking, short phrases, waited, marked timestamps in my head. After an hour I pulled off and stopped near a diner that had long since closed down. I rewound the recorder, played it back. Silence at first, just my voice. Then, around the 36-minute mark, something whispered underneath the noise. I boosted the gain, leaned in. It was faint, choppy, but it said, "Don't leave yet." I fast-forwarded. More static. Then again, my voice echoed, then layered, then doubled, and then just before the final minute of tape, a voice. Clear, calm, not mine. "Finally," it said, "we're alone." I threw the recorder in the sleeper and didn't touch it again for the rest of the trip. When I reached my delivery point, I left the cab door open for hours. Let the sun bake the inside of that space. I couldn't bring myself to play the tape again. But sometimes, when the engine cuts off at the end of a long night and the silence returns, I listen and I wait to see if I'll hear myself again before I speak. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Story 3. He was sitting on the side of the highway, but no exit was nearby. This happened in 2020 in the middle of a haul through central Wyoming. I was running a flatbed eastbound, empty, after a last-minute delivery cancellation in Salt Lake City. I'd decided to deadhead toward Nebraska to find another load. Stupid, but I couldn't afford to sit still. It was early spring, no snow, but the wind cut through the plains like it was trying to peel the paint off the truck. Wide open, 2-lane highway, no overpasses, no gas stations, just the long line of road and the sky above it. I'd been driving for 5 hours straight when I saw the man. He was sitting cross-legged on the shoulder about 10 feet off the white line. Pale hoodie, jeans, no backpack, just sitting there, no thumb out, not waving, just watching the road. I slowed a little but didn't stop. There was nowhere safe to pull over. Plus, something about him didn't look right. Not dangerous, just still. Too still. I made a mental note of the location. Just past mile marker 217, long curve with a cattle fence on the left. I figured I'd mention it if I saw a trooper or rolled into a way station. People do strange things out here. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're just lost. But 30 minutes later, I saw him again. Same clothes, same posture, same distance from the shoulder. I passed slower this time, looked out the window directly. It was him, no question. Same pale hoodie, same cross-legged position. He was facing forward now, not watching the road, but the horizon. There were no exits between 217 and where I was now. No underpasses, no junctions. Nothing he could have used to cut ahead. I checked my GPS. No towns for at least another 40 miles. I gripped the wheel tighter, told myself it had to be someone else. Similar build, maybe same style. Coincidence. But when I passed, I looked again. Same face. And this time, he turned his head and looked directly at me. Not a wave, not a frown, just a look, like he was checking to see if I remembered him. I drove in silence for the next hour. No music, no radio. I just watched the shoulder mile after mile. Nothing. Empty fields and old fence lines. Then I saw him again. Same man, same posture. This time he was further back, about 20 feet from the road, sitting in the grass. I slowed down, really slowed. Dropped to 45, looked long and hard, still cross-legged, still calm. This time I noticed his hands. They were on his knees, palms up, like he was waiting for something. That's when I noticed the temperature inside the cab had dropped. Not outside, not ambient, just the inside of the truck. Like the heat was being drained out from around me. I turned the knob to full, but nothing changed. The vents were running, but the air felt neutral, like it was bypassing me entirely. He was still staring at me in the mirror, just a white shape fading behind the trailer. I told myself I wouldn't stop, that it wasn't my place, that I'd call someone when I got to a town. But the fourth time broke something in me. It was around 4:10 a.m., light barely touching the sky. I was bleary-eyed, running on stale coffee and no sleep. I came around a bend near a cluster of old cattle gates, and there he was. Closer now, less than 5 feet from the shoulder, just sitting. Same way, same expression. This time I pulled over. The second I hit the brakes, the air in the cab felt thick again, not cold now, warm, oppressively warm, like the heat had finally kicked in all at once. I stepped out, boots crunching gravel, silence, not even birds. I walked toward him, cautious but steady. As I got closer, he didn't look up, just sat there, head bowed, palms still up. I was maybe 10 feet away when I spoke. "You all right, man?" No response. Closer now. "You need help?" He lifted his head, eyes calm, tired. Then he said something that stopped me cold. "You already asked. I already said no." His voice was steady, not angry, not annoyed, just matter of fact, like we were continuing a conversation I couldn't remember having. I stood still. "Have we met?" I asked. He just closed his eyes, slowly, as if it was the last thing he planned to do. Then he breathed out and didn't move again. I waited, watched. No twitch, no blink. Then I did something I still don't fully understand. I stepped back, got in the cab, and drove away. I didn't speed. I didn't call anyone. Something about his words had pulled the strength right out of my arms. He wasn't warning me. He was reminding me. A week later, I stopped in a small truck stop just east of Des Moines. It was one of those places that looks like it hasn't changed since the 80s. Old payphone booth, sagging snack racks, the smell of oil and burnt coffee in the walls. Inside, a few older drivers were seated near the corner, flipping through a faded logbook, the kind guys used to mark weird sightings or strange road conditions. I flipped to the back. There was a page titled "The Watchers," mostly nonsense. Stories of a girl in white seen between MM39 and MM40. A guy who said he kept seeing a barefoot woman at every overpass in Nevada, the usual folklore. But one entry made me stop. Dated 2002. Route, Highway 287, Northern Colorado. Driver, initials RM. Description: man seen sitting cross-legged just past mile 123. Looked peaceful. No thumb out. Same position, 3 separate sightings. No turn-offs in between. Finally stopped. Asked if he needed help. He said, "You already asked. I already said no." Then closed his eyes. I read it 3 times. The exact same wording, almost 2 decades before I saw him. Different state, different road, same man, same line. "You already asked." I flipped back further, found another one, 1997, I-80, Nebraska, a similar description, cross-legged, silent, no exit nearby. I asked the old guy behind the counter if anyone ever followed up on these stories. He shrugged. "Most don't take it seriously. Just something we pass around on quiet nights." I left the logbook on the counter and walked outside. I checked the mirrors, nothing. Checked under the truck, nothing. But as I turned the key and the engine roared to life, I felt it, a weight, like someone just barely out of sight. And I knew, next time I see him, I won't stop. Not because I'm afraid, but because I already asked, and he already said no.